Sonic the Hedgehog is an iconic video game hero who was established in the early 90s. He's been through a whole lot since his first game in 1991. Over the years, his design has been tweaked and he's had many games, some better than others. But does Sonic's first real big leap into the 3D world still hold up today? Did it ever hold up?
With the Sonic movie that just came out recently, and rumors still floating around that Sega is remaking Sonic Adventure, I thought it was as good a time as any to revisit this 90s classic. My name is Kyle-san, and this is my retro review of Sonic Adventure.
It was an era of 3D gaming, the beginning of an era. The mid to late 90s had the 3D gaming juggernaut that was the Nintendo 64. It was a huge success. Oh my God! With the likes of Super Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time. Not only were these titles previously 2D games on Nintendo's older platforms, they were massively successful. Taking the big leap into the 3D world with these franchises had to be carefully done. Having to completely change the rules so that these games worked in a 3D environment had to be extremely challenging. But Nintendo pulled it off with aplomb. On the other side of the gaming spectrum, there was the Sony PlayStation. Released a year before the Nintendo 64, they had fantastic 3D titles like Final Fantasy, Mega Man, Crash Bandicoot, the list goes on. Living up to these legendary games had to be a daunting task. The previous generation, the battle of the consoles was the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. If you were a kid in these days, you were either a Mario fan or a Sonic fan. Sega tried to get ahead of the game and released their first 3D system, the Sega Saturn. This system was released just before the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, but was considered a commercial failure. It had lackluster graphics and basically no big blockbuster games, except for maybe Nights into Dreams and Virtua Fighter. The Sonic franchise was huge on the Genesis, but only had a few spin-off titles on the Saturn. There was Sonic R, Sonic Jam, and a port of Sonic 3D Blast, none of which were really successful, and they all kind of looked like this.
Growing up, I never owned a Sega Saturn, or a Sega Genesis for that matter. My brothers and I were Nintendo fans through and through, but for some reason Sega decided to port some of their games to PC. Some of the games that we owned were Sonic & Knuckles Collection, Sonic CD, Sonic 3D Blast, and Sonic R. I absolutely loved Sonic the Hedgehog. He was cool, edgy, and sassy.
Ooh, I like to hang, but I got a juice.
In North America, the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation 1 came out in 95, the Nintendo 64 came out in 96, and at this point, Sony and Nintendo were just like rocking the market, but there was something else on the horizon that was rocking even harder.
1999 rolls around, and BAM! Sega drops their real 3D answer to Nintendo and Sony, the Dreamcast. I'm definitely not a stickler for graphics, but when this thing was released, holy f***ing shit, the graphics were amazing! I remember walking into Best Buy as a small 11-year-old and seeing this scene on the big screen, Sonic Adventure, Emerald Coast. My tiny little mind was completely blown. By today's standards, this looks like garbage. But you have to understand, we went from playing games that looked like this to this. It was a huge leap, and I cannot express enough how amazing this looked at the time. I was obsessed with Sonic Adventure. The graphics were amazing, the music rocked my world, the gameplay was so fast and crazy, it was the first time they changed Sonic's design, and he looked so awesome. I wanted to be Sonic. This was one of my all-time favorite games for so long, but whew, boy, was I so wrong.
For the purpose of this review, I'm playing the game on its original platform, so the capture might look a little lower quality. They ported this game to GameCube and later to the PC with higher graphics and HD resolution, but ultimately more bugs. I wanted to get the authentic Dreamcast experience, so let's dive right in.
When you boot up the game, of course, you get the classic Dreamcast boot sequence. the Sega logo, followed by the mysterious female voice saying, and then, the opening. To this day, this opening is still so badass. The intense rock music, the awesome CGI visuals, the apocalyptic events, and of course, Sonic's crazy smile. If this doesn't get you pumped, then I don't know what will. One of the most nostalgic things about playing this game on the Dreamcast is hearing that every time something is loading. Also, the VMU, the Visual Memory Unit. It's basically a memory card that has a small screen on it and buttons, similar to that of a Game Boy. You can play mini-games on it when it's not plugged into the controller. I guess it's more like a Tamagotchi. Anyway, after the opening, it brings us to the game menu. You can pick from adventure, time trials, and etc. We're playing adventure, baby. Oh yeah! The overarching story is basically this. Robotnik is trying to take over the world, like he always does. He discovers this weird water creature with immense power called Chaos. When Robotnik feeds Chaos more Chaos Emeralds, it becomes stronger and stronger. I don't know why Robotnik decides this is a good idea, but apparently it'll help him create his own world called
Robotnik Land, the ultimate city!
Also, why is Chaos being loyal to Robotnik? Is it because he keeps giving him emeralds? He's like a dog who keeps following around a stranger because they keep giving them treats. Anyway, it's Sonic's duty as a hero to stop Robotnik, or I should say,
Eggman,
from destroying the world. So he and Tails decide to try and collect the emeralds before Robotnik can. The most ambitious thing about this game is that there is one story and 6 playable characters. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, E102 Gamma, and Big the Cat? You're probably thinking, what the f are those last two? Well, you'll find out soon enough. The way the story is told is that it's the same story, but told from the perspective of each character. So you're basically reliving the same events 6 times, but from different angles. So that's kinda cool, right? Well, not entirely. While it seems like this is a fun idea, it gets old and very annoying, seeing the same events play out over and over again, just with a little dialogue change. Sometimes the events change depending on who you're playing as, which is kind of funny because it's like in real life when you hear the same story from 2 different people who remember it completely differently. For example, Sonic and Tails are together a lot. When you play as Sonic, Sonic is the one who fights all the battles and makes all the funny quips. But when you play as Tails, he's the one who's doing all those things. Let's visit every character and see what their path is in the story. I'm combining these 2 together because they're basically the same story. At the beginning, Sonic is just roof hopping for some reason and stumbles upon a bunch of cops trying to shoot at Chaos.
Oh no! Our weapons are useless!
Sonic fights him, but he ultimately gets away. The next day, Tails crashes his airplane called the Tornado.
watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
And Sonic saves him. They go to Tails' workshop to get the airplane fixed, but run into Robotnik along the way. They fight him, and when they win, Robotnik explains to them in full detail his evil plot to collect all the emeralds and give them to Chaos. So Sonic and Tails try to defeat Robotnik by collecting the emeralds before he can, but basically fail along the way and end up having to fight Chaos in almost every single form. At one point, they hop onto Tails' airplane and chase Eggman to this giant flying fortress called the Egg Carrier. Jeez, for a man who hates being nicknamed Eggman, he sure does embrace the name. For God's sake, he literally has a locked door, and to unlock it you have to spell out his name Eggman. Ugh. Anyway, on their way to the Egg Carrier, they get shot down and they get separated. Sonic just keeps doing his Sonic thing, finding emeralds and shit. He runs into Amy at one point. Tails decides he can't keep relying on Sonic so much, so he decides to have the confidence to do things on his own and rebuild his airplane. After rebuilding the plane, Tails somehow finds Sonic on top of a mountain, and they go back to chasing the Egg Carrier. Once on the flying ship, they run into Amy and Knuckles, find Robotnik, beat up Chaos again, and split up again when the egg carrier goes down. Sonic discovers a hidden temple, learns the secret of Chaos, and then chases Robotnik to his not-so-hidden base. It's literally a giant city with bright lights, basically welcoming people to it. It also has this abnormally long bridge that goes out to a giant tower. Like, what the f***? Sonic defeats Robotnik, and that's the end of his story. Tails returns Amy to Station Square, where Robotnik also lands after the ship goes down. Robotnik decides to f***ing nuke Station Square, but apparently the missile
was a dud.
Where was he keeping this f***ing nuke? It just pops out of the ocean like a daisy! The government should be really keeping a closer eye on this guy.
I can't believe this.
Anyway, after the nuke fails to explode, Robotnik decides to find it and rearm it, but Tails beats him there and fights him. Tails wins, and that's the end of his story.
I wanna fly high so I can reach the highest.
I'm not exactly certain about the timeline between Sonic and Tails' stories, but I'm pretty sure Eggman and Tails were fighting while Sonic was discovering the secrets of Chaos, and then Eggman escapes and Sonic follows him from there. Knuckles' story starts with a self-narration, being all zen-like and responsible. He's the guardian of the Master Emerald, a giant green version of the Chaos Emerald. No one knows why he's there, he just always has been.
I don't know why I was given this job, why it was my fate. Destined to be here forever.
The island that holds the Master Emerald is a floating island, and one night Knuckles is just sleeping on the job, super awkwardly might I add, and Chaos bursts from the Master Emerald. Apparently Chaos was living inside the Master Emerald, but this isn't explained until the very end. The Master Emerald is completely broken.
Oh no! Something's happened to the Master Emerald!
And without its power, the magical floating island falls to the sea. Knuckles decides that it's his quest to find all the shards to the Master Emerald and restore its power.
It won't be easy.
While on this quest, he successfully finds most of the shards. At one point, he spots Eggman just walking around in a hotel and thinks he has some shards in his hands. So he chases him up an elevator to a f***ing ballroom? Eggman shows him that he has Chaos Emeralds and not the Master Emerald shards, but summons Chaos and decides to try and kill Knuckles anyway.
It's that creature again.
Once Knuckles wins the fight, Eggman tricks Knuckles into thinking Sonic also is after the Master Emerald shards. So, like an idiot, Knuckles just trusts Eggman and tracks down Sonic and fights him, thinking he also has the shards. Sonic and Knuckles are friends, so you think he would just f***ing ask Sonic if he was after the shards.
That's not gonna happen, buddy!
Sonic and Knuckles bonk heads and Sonic loses his Chaos Emeralds. Eggman just conveniently shows up just in time to snag them and feed them to Chaos. Knuckles beats up Chaos again. Eggman spouts some shit and then just runs away. Knuckles then finds more shards and returns to the Master Emerald to restore it, but it's still not complete. Then, like a magic crystal ball, the Master Emerald decides to show an image of the egg carrier to Knuckles.
This is beginning to blow my mind.
Knuckles stows aboard the egg carrier, finds the last shards, fights Chaos again, the egg carrier starts to go down, and then returns to the Master Emerald. Now that the emerald is complete, the island floats back up and Knuckles is at peace again, his inner monologue still rolling.
I'm at peace once more.
Oh no!
Amy's story consists of her finding a little birdie that is holding a Chaos Emerald in its locket. Amy doesn't know this though and decides that it's her mission to protect the bird because it's being chased by a robot that Robotnik sent to retrieve the emerald. Amy is literally being chased by this robot her whole f***ing story. After finding Sonic, giving him unwanted love,
Come on, don't run away! Oh!
and running around for a bit, Amy and the bird finally get caught by the robot and are imprisoned on the egg carrier. Everyone literally ends up on the egg carrier one way or another. While Amy is in prison, a different robot named E102 Gamma shows up to take the bird away, but has a change of heart because Amy talk no jutsus her way out of it. E102 decides to let her go instead. After running around the egg carrier for a while, Amy finds Sonic fighting E102 and decides to stop them because E102 is a good robot.
This robot is different.
Eggman is there too and somehow gets a hold of the birdie and steals the Chaos Emerald from its locket.
I don't need you!
The ship starts going down, la-di-da, we've seen all this before. Tails brings Amy and the bird safely to Station Square. Amy finally notices the locket and sees that the locket has a photo of the birdie and his parents. Where the bird learned how to use a camera and take a picture of his family, who knows, but it's there! Amy decides to help the bird find its family. She believes that they're probably being held captive by Eggman, so she goes back to the air carrier, which is now just floating in the ocean because it went down earlier. Once there, Amy has to fight the bad robot that's been chasing them this whole time, and after she beats him, she finds the bird's parents, and they are reunited. And to be totally honest, the bird's parents just randomly showed up, so I guess that's lucky. E102 Gamma has probably the most interesting story out of anyone. His existence starts with Eggman's big, dumb, stupid head in front of him, like literally nose to nose.
All systems, full power!
He's a robot that Eggman has created, and he's one of the E100 series. He starts in a training course shooting dolls that look like Sonic and the gang, being brainwashed into thinking they are the bad guys. After that, he has to fight his older brother, E101 Beta, and whoever wins gets the prize of serving on the egg carrier. After E102 beats his brother, E101 begs Robotnik to let him serve on the ship too, and Robotnik agrees but says,
We could always use a spare set of parts, I guess.
Oh, did I mention that this story's a little dark? Yeah, it's probably why it's one of the best. After that, Robotnik sends Gamma on a mission, along with all the other E100 series, to find a frog with a tail. Gamma finds the frog, brings it back, and Robotnik is very proud.
I'm proud of you, Gamma.
All of the other E100 series brought the wrong frogs, so Robotnik just banishes them with giant beams of light. Not sure how he does that, because that's kind of weird. The next mission Robotnik sends Gamma on is to retrieve the bird that Amy has. At this point, Amy is in prison on the egg carrier. Gamma accidentally enters the wrong room, though, and witnesses his older brother Beta being torn apart. Gamma leaves the room and doesn't really seem to be fazed by it, but you can tell, deep in his eyes, he has seen some shit. Gamma then goes and lets Amy free, and we've seen all this before. He's then summoned by Robotnik to fight Sonic. Amy intervenes and saves both their lives. Then the ship goes down, la-di-da, and Gamma escapes. Gamma then has an existential crisis and realizes that Robotnik has been doing bad things and disowns him as his master. He decides that he's going to save his robot brothers instead by literally killing them, so he goes around to different places, finds his bros, and destroys them. At the end, he realizes that Beta is the last one, that he's still alive and he's on the egg carrier. So he goes back to the egg carrier, which is now in the sea because it crashed. Beta is there and is flying around because Robotnik gave him a super upgrade. So Gamma fights him, beats him, and you both blow up for some reason. But then, Gamma and Beta were birds the whole time. They were trapped inside the robot bodies. They're also the other birdie's parents. Everything just comes together at the end. It's just, it's so heartwarming. This is literally the worst thing ever. Big the Cat is the dumbest story and character to ever exist. He's literally just a big dumb cat, hence the name, and his best friend is a frog that is visited by Chaos and then just randomly eats a Chaos Emerald. The frog's name is
Froggy, 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 Froggy.
So original. The frog is being possessed by Chaos's tail, which doesn't really make any sense at all. So Froggy now has a super long tail and is just running around for funsies. Big's objective is to literally chase him and fish for him. Every time you catch Froggy, he somehow always gets away. This is the dumbest thing ever. There's no reason for this character to exist. And nobody asked for this! It's like they saw the super fun fishing minigame in Ocarina of Time and decided to create a whole character around a fishing mechanic, but it's bad! Big's Big Dumb Adventure brings him all the way to the egg carrier, obviously.
This place doesn't look familiar to me at all.
And Chaos obtains Froggy and reabsorbs his tail. Big has to save Froggy by fishing for him out of Chaos's giant water body. Once he does, the egg carrier starts going down, so he steals Tails' airplane, which is just f***ing sitting there, and Big and Froggy go back home, and it's happily ever after. Thank f***ing God, that's over. After you finish everyone's story, it unlocks a 7th and final character, Supersonic. Basically, after the events of everyone's story, Chaos comes back, retrieves all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds, turning him into perfect Chaos.
That monster is a real menace.
He destroys the entire city, and now it looks super post-apocalyptic. Sonic and the gang don't know what to do, but for some reason, Tails knows that Chaos only uses the negative power of the emeralds. So Sonic then decides to use the positive power and becomes Supersonic. Sonic fights Chaos with a pretty awesome boss battle and wins. Chaos then turns good again and becomes the protector of the emeralds once more. During the course of everyone's story, there's a spirit named Tikal that visits all of them. And at different points of the game, she just randomly shows up and transports our characters to the past. Tikal is the daughter of an Echidna clan chief and becomes friends with Chaos, who used to be the protector of the Chaos and the Master Emeralds. Tikal's father wants to harness the power of the emeralds, but Tikal does not want him to. But her father and the whole clan decides to try anyway, and that's when Chaos becomes enraged and attacks. These flashbacks only really happen in the game to give us a glimpse of what Chaos's origin story is. Tikal is also the guide in the game, and is always hanging around giving you advice as a small light that looks suspiciously like Navi from Zelda.
Probably the biggest thing this game suffers from is its gameplay. I remember playing it as a kid and thinking the gameplay was amazing, but in reality, it's actually pretty terrible. The only character available to you from the start is Sonic, and when you play his story, you meet the other characters, and from there you unlock their respective stories.
The game devs try to do what almost every 3D platformer was doing at the time, and created a hub world, but not just one hub world, 3. And they're called adventure fields. From these adventure fields, you can enter either action stages or sub-games, but you can't enter them all willy-nilly. You have to do it in the correct order to make sure the pacing of the story stays correct. First, let's take a look at these adventure fields. You have Station Square, which is the main city where human people live. Sonic and his friends always look so out of place here. There's also the Mystic Ruins, which is like an Amazon forest type area. Here, there's a giant forest maze with a Mayan temple in the middle. Lastly, there's the Egg Carrier, Eggman's great flying fortress. Each adventure field also has different areas, but they're sectioned off by freaking loading screens. Some areas you can't even get into until you advance the story farther. While these adventure fields are fun and all, they're not really that necessary. Mainly, they're just frustrating because a lot of the time the game doesn't tell you what to do next. So you're literally just running around trying to figure out where to go and what to do. A lot of the time you have to find knockoff Navi over here and she'll tell you exactly where to go. Other times she's super aloof and is just like, did you check everywhere? And then you have to freaking just run around. And it's, Each adventure field also has an entrance to a themed Chow Garden. I didn't really do the Chow Garden this time around, but I'll touch on it. Basically, a Chow is a little baby creature that you raise in a safe area called a garden, obviously. They first start off as eggs, you wait for them to hatch, then you can feed them and give them animals that you collect throughout the game. Their attributes and appearances change when you give them different animals. You can then race them in fun minigames. You can also transport them to your VMU and take care of them on the go, similar to that of a Tamagotchi. You can find special eggs in the adventure fields, like silver, gold, and even a dark egg. These will give you special chow. Next, we have action stages, which is exactly what you guessed, an action stage. It's just a regular level that you play as one of the characters. This is where the game really stumbles. When you play as Sonic, every stage is actually pretty well designed, and the gameplay is quite fun. Sonic stages work very well, but that's basically where it ends. There are 11 action stages in all, and 10 of them were specifically designed just for Sonic. All of these stages are then recycled for everyone else. The objective of Sonic stages is to just run through them as quick as you can while avoiding obstacles. Tails does basically the same stages as Sonic, except they add little air boosts so he can fly. Tails' objective is to also run through the stage as fast as possible, but you have to beat Sonic in a race. Knuckles' stages are a little more unique because he's treasure hunting for the Master Emerald shards. You basically just run around while his dinging GPS that's inside his f***ing head tells you how close you are. Once again, they reused the same stages that were built for Sonic, but sectioned them off to make them kinda work for Knuckles. Amy's objective is to run away from an evil robot, but she is so f***ing slow that it hurts. She has a giant hammer so she can flip super high, but her momentum is so off that it's infuriating. E102 Gamma rolls around and shoots his gun at objects and enemies. What's interesting about Gamma is that instead of the stage time going up, it goes down. It starts at 3 minutes, and when he shoots something, his timer goes back up so he can beat the stage in enough time. This would be challenging if his stages were longer than 50 seconds. Big the Cat just fishes for Froggy, and it's extremely annoying. Seriously, I hate it. He even does a stupid dance after you beat a stage. It's so dumb. Sonic has 10 action stages. Tails, Knuckles, and Gamma have 5. Big has 4, and Amy only has 3, thank God. It feels like they built this whole game just for Sonic, and then just haphazardly threw in the other characters and recycled the levels. Finally, there are sub-game levels. There are only 5 of these. 2 of them are Sonic and Tails flying in the tornado, blasting their way through enemies, which you do in both their stories. The other ones are a desert snowboarding level with Tails, a go-kart race with Sonic, and a whack-a-mole game with Amy. Bosses in this game are so f***ing easy. You literally just hit them 3 or 4 times and they're done. Sometimes when you're fighting another playable character, you can decimate them so hard because they can't even get a hit in. At the end, when you play as Super Sonic, his whole story is basically just one big boss battle. You fight perfect chaos, and you just have to avoid the shit he hurls at you, while also collecting rings to keep your super form. If your rings run out, you lose your super form and it's game over. The boss battle is actually pretty fun, but sometimes if you just barely touch something, it completely stops you and you lose all your momentum, and you need momentum to be able to get a hit on Chaos. While Sonic's gameplay is pretty good, everyone in the game suffers from some major problems. First off, they tried to implement a sense of momentum and speed, and for this to work, they basically made everyone's feet super sticky. Doing this lets the characters run sideways along walls, among other things, but it creates some major problems. The main one being characters get stuck along edges sometimes and completely spaz out. Another one is sometimes when you're running super fast and go up on the walls or the ceiling, you can get totally stuck. Sometimes, if you stop and don't touch the controller at all, the characters will still keep walking in place, or just very slowly on their own. Another major problem is the camera. Oh Lord God, the camera in this game is awful. First off, they let you control it. The L and R trigger's only function is to swivel the camera, and it's very limited. In some spaces, it'll hardly move. The camera also decides to move on its own. There are some areas where the camera wants you to be looking at a certain direction, but if you want to go in a different direction, or move the camera yourself, it can get stuck in a place where you can't see what's going on at all. Mainly, it just gets stuck in walls, and it's really frustrating. One of the big things this game did was bring in full voice talent for its characters. The thing is, it's not very good. Eggman's voice is actually well done, and Sonic is decent, but everyone else is really pretty bad. It's been stated that the voice actors were all acting in the dark. Their lines were all recorded separately, their scripts only had their respective character lines, and absolutely zero story context was given to them, even if they were talking to another character. That's why you get very weird and awful lines that sound like this.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
That's Eggman. I wonder what happened to Sonic.
This is beginning to blow my mind.
Come on, don't run away! Oh!
You're looking kinda weird, good buddy.
Also, what the f*** is up with their mouths? It doesn't even look like they're talking at all. I was thinking maybe because the lip flaps for the Japanese voices were different, and they never changed it, but it's still totally off in the Japanese too. Did they just like randomly animate the lip flaps for the characters and then just hope and pray the voices lined up? Like, oh, seriously, what the hell? The music in this game is still some of the best that video games have brought us. Jun Senoue composed some amazing tracks for this game. He brought in astounding electric rock sound that I have never heard in a video game before. The music in this game actually influenced the way that I listen to music in general. My family only listened to the oldies from the 50s and 60s and kids music. My dad was obsessed with the Beatles, so I knew almost every song by heart. But as an impressionable 11-year-old, this amazing electric rock music made me realize that there was more music out there than what I already knew. I started listening to pop punk, emo, and metal on my own because of this game. From stage songs that jam to kick-ass theme songs, Jun really knows how to rock.
Well, that's basically it for this review. All in all, the game actually isn't the masterpiece that I used to think it was. I actually had a hard time finishing it because I literally just didn't want to play it anymore. The only fun parts were Sonic's, and that's about 1/3 of the whole game. With a story that's only okay and gameplay that's really subpar, I give Sonic Adventure 5 Baby Chow out of 10. Oh, what am I wearing? You know, after playing this game, I just really wanted to know how it feels to be Sonic. I got a train I gotta catch. You wanna come along?
The train headed for Station
Hear that?
Square will be departing soon.
Let's go!
Check it out, Tails! We're in Station Square! I'm Sonic! Sonic the Hedgehog! Dude, what the f*** now? Wow, that's one big bean that Dr. Robotic made out of his, his mean bean machine.
Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you like this video, please hit that like button. I'll have more videos like this in the future, so you can also hit that subscribe. There's also a little bell icon. You can tap that and you'll be notified every single time one of my videos drops. I have a bunch of other fun stuff over on my channel. If you guys want to go watch that, that'd be great. You guys can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Links are down in the description below. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the flip side.